So, hello there, Lynda.
Hi, Georgie.
So nice to meet you. And thank you so much for sending me some information about your journey as well, because I had a look at that before we chat. And you've had quite a remarkable recovery, haven't you?
I have, yeah, I have. Lots of went on, yeah. Lots of things have went on in my life, and I feel much better for it. So that's good.
Fantastic. Yeah, oh, that's really good. And that's the aim, is that generally people find they're able to do more and often more happier as well. So what about when you, I know it started before the main pain in 2019, but just tell me maybe initially, and then we can fill things in as we go along. So how the pain started in 2019.
So in 2019, we actually, my husband finished in the army, and we moved into central London, and we moved into a flat, and it was a huge flat, and we seemed to not have much stuff to go in this flat. And I used to wander around thinking, oh, I need to get this and I need to get that. And I was putting so much pressure on myself that everything had to be perfect. And I had boxes around me, and it was overwhelming, really. I think that's what it was, all the change. Even though I had moved so many times in the past, this felt like a final move, and we were going to be here for a while. Yeah, so
what did you initially blame the pain on?
Hey, just my back being bad.
Right, so just having had a bad back anyway, it wasn't that you'd been doing lots of packing or you hadn't done anything specific to cause the pain. Did it just come on?
I think it was just being busy. I thought I've just been too busy and I've done too much. Yeah.
Right. Gosh, those belief systems, they don't help us, do they?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not
So
at
how
all.
long have you had problems with your back?
Oh, God, I think probably since my son was born.
Right.
I think that's when my back got really bad. I got
How long ago was that?
So he's 24 nearly now. So
right.
yeah.
So we're talking 20 years anyway.
Yeah, 20 years plus. And before that, I probably had different things wrong that I didn't associate with the back pain. And yeah, so.
I recognise those for mind body conditions as well.
Yeah, I think it was piriformis syndrome they said I had with my son.
Right.
And that was horrendous. I felt like somebody had kicked me in the backside. And that went on for weeks on end.
And did they explain why they thought you had it?
No, that I just needed to work those muscles more and do more exercises.
Right. Oh dear, and clearly that didn't help by the sounds of it. Or... No,
it didn't help. I think maybe it was just because my son, when he was born, he was very poorly, and there was a lot of stress connected to him and feeding him, and that's the whole thing. It was
and if your husband was in the army, was he around much at that point or not?
He was at that time. Yeah, he was around then. Yeah, I was lucky. Yeah,
it's funny when you mentioned piriformis syndrome, it brings back memories of a lady I saw right at the beginning. Actually, it was before I was doing this work. Yeah, before I came across it, it made me really question it because I was treating her, gentle treatment kindness with piriformis syndrome. And she began to get better. And then she left one evening, and on her way home, she got her car got hit by another car. So she developed whiplash. So I started using this treatment, and actually it was an all body treatment anyway. But it was focusing on the whole body, but her whiplash started settling down. But what was interesting was that when the whiplash came on, her piriformis syndrome resolved completely. So while I was treating a whiplash, no piriformis syndrome. As soon as the whiplash symptoms eased, piriformis syndrome came back. And I remember thinking at the time, right, okay, I knew somebody who I did as well when I left the NHS, developed sciatica, and she was the first person who said to me, so what's going on in your life? So I began to realise something was going on, but at that point, before I came across Dr. Sarna's work, I didn't know what to say, what to ask, the relevance of it all. And so I suggested she saw this lady, and actually then it all came up. significant stuff going on in her work, and that resolved, and she's had that back. So that was a really good thing for me to see. So when I came across Dr. Sarna's work, that was really just ready to stand it. So moving forward then, when you tried various things, I think, for your back pain over the years, haven't you?
Yeah, I've done acupuncture, I've done reflexology, exercising lots. I've tried everything. Yeah.
Right. And did you find that it was bad for sometimes and then it would ease, or did you always have that? Were you somebody who believed you always had a back problem? How did it present an effect?
It did come and go. I mean, sometimes it was there just niggling in the background all day when I was doing certain things like brushing my dogs. I think maybe I just didn't really enjoy brushing my dogs much. And probably just doing chores around the house. Yeah, right. And it was fine when I was out walking and doing things I enjoyed doing.
Right. Okay. Interesting. And did you have episodes then when you were just unable to move, or?
Oh, completely unable to move. Yeah, I can remember one time having some paramedics come round and they were giving me the gas and everything so I could get out of bed to go to the toilet.
Wow. Gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so you really struggled with it then, though.
Yeah, for years.
Yeah. And were you on any medication?
I think I just took ibuprofen and paracetamol. I think maybe one time I've had something a bit stronger, but I didn't like it, so just never used it. Yeah.
So apart from piriformis, were you given any other diagnoses or an explanation for the pain?
I'm trying to think. Oh, I've had so many different pains. I'm looking at my list here, and it's very extensive, George. No, not really diagnosis, because they always came and went.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but I've definitely had tennis elbow. I've had, was it the one in your hand as well? Carpal tunnel. I think
Carpal tunnel syndrome. Mm-hmm.
I've had that. Sore hips, sore shins, plantar fasciitis.
Yeah.
That too, had that quite bad for a while.
So all these sort of came and went different times.
Yeah. Yeah, they all came and went.
You mentioned had you fractured something as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. So when I was really young, when I was 19, I was in a car accident and fractured my femur. Right. And I had a big pin put on my leg. And then later on, I mean, it did get better again. It was fine. And I recovered from that. But then later on, I think that was around the time of my son as well. That was when I started to hold a lot of pain in my hip.
Right.
Right down my femur. And that really plagued me for years and years until I found out about this. And
so interesting.
Yeah. Walk far at all with that. So I could probably walk a couple of miles and then my leg would start to ache. And then I'd be like, oh, this is too bad. I'll have to stop walking now.
And yet initially it had healed and been fine.
Yeah,
but presumably the belief was I've broken that hip. No wonder it's a problem getting older.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You also said when you come across this work that you also realised that you stammered before, and that was as well.
Yeah, that was really tough. So I started stammering around the age of 4. My dad had epilepsy, and I think maybe that's where it came from, the trauma of that, and I was always very stressed by that.
Yes, I'm not surprised. And then seeing that presumably over the years.
Yeah, I watched him and I used to think, oh, he might die. And
yeah. Wow. So that's quite
yeah,
okay.
So I used to have eczema when I was little, and I wet the bed.
Yes, no wonder. Mm. So all these different symptoms that you haven't realised were all part and parcel of the same sort of understanding, same concept, until you came across our work. So I think you said that, wasn't it, your friend Steve suggested Dr. Sandler's book, but you weren't quite ready at the time, as is so often the case.
Yeah, he's my saviour, Steve, and Dr. Sarno as well.
Yes.
Yeah, it was funny because he sent me this message. He says, "Oh, Lynda, I think you should have a look at this. I think this might be really interesting to you." And I kind of Googled it a little bit, and then I thought I must order that book. And then it came, and I think it sat next to my bed for a couple of weeks before I even opened it up.
Well, 2 weeks is not bad. For some people, it's months or years. Or they read it and then they throw it across the room because they're not ready for it.
Yeah.
Then find it a few months or years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And I think you said that you began to really understand it when you started doing it.
Yeah, I did. It was amazing. Just the personality type, just putting so much pressure on myself to get everything done and to be perfect, and unreasonable lists in my head of what need done in the length of a day.
Yes. Wow. Okay. So what happened after that? I mean, obviously some people have book recoveries, many people need a lot more than that. I know that you started reading around and learning more, didn't you?
Yes, it was, I mean, it wasn't instant. But I think once I realised that my back wasn't actually broken and I would get better, then my brain did start to settle and the pain subsided a lot. But I wrote a big timeline about all the events that have happened in my life, all the traumatic events, and I'd done a lot of journaling to do with that. And I felt the pain start to disappear, especially when it came to the one about my son. And I can remember thinking about it and writing about it, and then I got this almighty pain shot right up my back, trying to stop me from thinking about it.
Yes. Yes. Wow. So it's really trying to protect you from having to feel those emotions. Wow. Good for you. And you just carried on. Allowed to pause, allow it.
Yeah, I just allowed it and I said, it's okay. Yeah.
Wow. And isn't that wonderful? Because that then is a real reinforcement of this whole concept, which is fantastic, because often it's about experientially feeling things like that really help, don't they? Reinforce it for you.
Yeah, yeah. And also just when I started to look at myself and how it hadn't been very easy for me being young and stammering, just the fear, the embarrassment, the shame of stammering when I was young, and how it really held me back.
Yes.
That released a lot of emotions that I hadn't dealt with and had repressed.
That it did. Wow. And have you watched the King's Speech?
I have, yeah.
Speech, because in fact, it was my husband who was sort of nudging me when they started talking about, the fact he stammered, and the fact he'd been put in calipers and wasn't able to move to straighten his legs and wasn't able to see his parents, except for a certain amount of time in the evening. And even my husband was saying, "Oh, this is right up your street. This is your sort of work, isn't it, Georgie?" So one of the things that I was so impressed with you was that you said that when you realised that stammering was the same thing, the same concept, you joined Toastmasters.
So before that, well, that was later on a little bit, but I went to a fear of public speaking course.
Right. Oh, right. Wow. This is fantastic.
So I wrote this list of challenges for myself, and I knew that was a tricky one.
Right.
And I would have to deal with it. That and swimming, which I was very scared to put my head below the water.
Right.
I'd had a bit of a drowning incident when I was younger, and I had never been able to do that, put my head below the water.
Lovely the way you put that, a bit of a drowning incident. Did you drown or did you not drown?
Yeah.
I know where you come from with that. Yes, and I experienced
Yeah.
it
So I
too.
think those were my two biggest fears in life: public speaking and the swimming. I mean, today I would never have dreamt of coming on this podcast a few years, well, 2 years ago. Yeah.
It made me go all shivering. This is fantastic, Lynda. What a turnaround for you. And you set that goal about putting your face in the water as well. So how did you do that?
So I went on some private lessons with a lovely swimming instructor, and she was fabulous, and she just made me go in there was a shower at the start, and she made me go over my face first and then just submerge my face a little bit, and then eventually I was swimming. Yeah, doing the front crawl.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And now I believe you're a wild swimmer.
I'm a wild swimmer. I haven't been putting my face in just as much because it's been very cold.
I don't put my face in the winter either, so I can understand that.
Yeah, but I do love wild swimming. Yeah, really great.
So it sounds like you've set yourself challenges, but you've been really doing them with self-compassion and kindness to yourself, not just right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, but really taking it step by step and being kind to yourself.
Yeah, I have. It's funny though how that old personality type sneaks in again though, because when I was doing my swimming and then I started watching videos on how to swim perfectly. And then all of a sudden the back pain came back again.
Wow, yes. Doesn't that just go to show, the important that this isn't just a let's get rid of the pain, but actually working on you and who you are and how you live your life and your behaviors, personality traits, being kind to yourself, self-compassionate. There's so many things involved, aren't there?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, and just
not like the technique to get you better.
No, definitely not. I have to monitor my thoughts quite a lot, when I catch myself and then just change that around.
Right. So what are the main things that you feel benefited you, just for other people watching this? What are the main understandings and strategies that you found helpful?
I think actually paying attention to what's going on inside.
Excellent.
So I do a lot of the somatic experiencing. I would lie back and just observe what's going on in my body and not really focus on it, but just watch it from afar, what's going on, and and breathe. Lots of nice breathing.
Good. Calm breathing. Hopefully breathing all the time, but some nice calm breathing.
Calm breathing, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. So really developing your felt sense, how you feel inside, because by doing that, then you're able to notice more quickly when you are triggered. If somebody says something or you feel triggered by somebody, then at least you become aware of it more quickly to do something about it, don't you? Rather than waiting for the pain, shutting it down and waiting for the pain.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't think I ever really felt much when I was younger. I think I used to just push everything down and ignore it. With the speech as well, instead of stammering, I would be swapping words around in my head, constantly trying to avoid words that I couldn't say. And
yes, wow. So an awful lot going on in here. So that's a real transformation to really bring yourself out of your head and then into your body. Did that take time for you to learn to do that?
Yeah, I think it's all just been I don't know, it's just been a long journey. Well, it's not a long journey, it's quite short really, but I think every time I hear something different on podcasts, I think, oh, I'll adopt something, a part of that for my life. Yeah. So
So is there anything you would like to say to people watching this?
Well, I think you have to be really kind to yourself. Be your own best friend.
Yeah.
Speak to yourself like you are your friend, and just catch yourself when you're not, and just let it go. Don't pay it any attention. Let it go, and then just start speaking in a nicer manner to yourself. Yeah.
So it sounds like you've turned your life around quite a bit, but still really aware of all this and making sure that you are still kind to yourself. But am I right in thinking you run triathlons now, or you certainly do?
I done a half marathon. I done a half marathon last January. So that was a real challenge because I never could run. Every time I started to run, the pain used to shoot right up my back. And then I would stop, and then I would stop.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, well, my back's too bad.
It's not good for me, this.
Yeah. But then whenever I found out about all these methods, then I decided, well, I'm going to start running.
Wonderful. Wow.
And I started that during COVID. I started to do the couch to 5K, and then I done some 5K races, and then my daughter decided that we should do a half marathon.
Fabulous, well done.
Yeah, and it was great. I can't actually believe that I done it.
Yeah, clearly did. Yeah. And I think it's such a good challenge because it's something to focus on. And I think it's really interesting as well that so many people who train to do marathons or half marathons often do get stress-induced symptoms either leading up to it or during the race. Often because they've set a challenge, they're determined to do it. Maybe they're raising money for people and the pressure is quite a bit. But they often don't recognise that these are stress-induced symptoms.
Yeah,
but it's a great challenge to set. That's the first thing I did when I started, came across this work. And in my 50th year, I decided, right, I'm going to train to run a marathon. And again, it was like a half marathon. Then we got to the end, and the friend I did it with said, "So should we do a London marathon next year?" And I went, "Oh, no, don't think I've got anything to prove. Half marathon was enough for me, thank you." At the time it takes to train.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, LaGeorgia. There's no way that I want to do the London Marathon. Or
especially as you have to train right through the winter as well, rather than the summer. So just one final thing. You say your husband was in the army. Now, I was an Air Force child, and I know the challenges I experienced from being an Air Force child, moving around so often and then going to boarding school. Being an army wife, that must be challenging because, as you've already said, you did move around a lot. But also, was your husband not there a lot of the time, or?
Yeah, there was a few times he's been away on. He was one of the first lot of the army to go into Basra, in Iraq, with all the chemical weapons, and so that was a very challenging time. Yeah, and my children were only little.
Right. So I can imagine that definitely would play a part in becoming worried and having to deal with challenges.
And I can't think, I probably had lots of different symptoms then that I've just tried to ignore, but I definitely had lots of neck pain and shoulder pain, tinnitus.
Yes.
So many different things. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on your recovery and the way you've implemented all this, Lynda. Fantastic.
And I was actually going to mention the Toastmasters, so that's another thing. Yeah, so now I'm part of this group called King's Speakers, and it's for people who stammer and have social anxiety. And you have to, or you can get up and do talks on whatever you fancy. So I've actually mentioned you in some of my talks already.
Really? Well, that's wonderful, and I'm glad you've mentioned that because I've not heard of that. I did join Toastmasters for a while, many years ago, but I didn't realise there was that group. So that's fantastic. Wow.
Yeah, it's really good.
Hopefully that will inspire some people.
Yeah, and now when I ever do stammer, I just think about what else is going on in my life. I don't actually concentrate on that. I don't give it any space in my life now. Yeah, I don't let it stop me from doing things. Yeah.
Wonderful. And so it's just another manifestation, isn't it, of unresolved emotions?
Yeah, it is.
What's going on in your life? Yeah.
Yeah, I would actually like to be able to give advice to some parents, with their children, to not pay attention to it and make them feel better in different ways instead of concentrating on the speech.
Well, that's a really good challenge.
Hopefully that'll come along soon, that I'll be able to meet the appropriate people, and yeah,
Absolutely.
so
Yeah, well, I wish you all the best with that. But that's fantastic, and I really appreciate you offering to share your story as well, Lynda. And
oh, that's great, George.
so,
Yeah.
thank
I've
you
really
very
enjoyed
much.
it. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you then.
All right, then, take care.